Hey everyone, Jake here for Extreme Terrain, and in this video we're taking a look at the Oracle Oculus Color Shift Bi-LED projector headlights with black housings and clear lenses fitting 2021 and newer Broncos. These are a great way to make your Bronco stand out from the rest of the pack. With multi-tiered adjustable RGB lighting coupled with clean good looks and lots of good lighting output, these headlights talk the talk and walk the walk. Aftermarket manufacturers have jumped onto the Bronco and are offering all manner of new headlights for the platform, but these just might be the coolest ones that you can get. As far as the main lighting elements are concerned, these are Bi-LEDs, so the large projectors in the center will function as both your low and high beams, and these put out a ton of light, about 5,200 lumens, and they're also a very cool temperature light, about 5,500 K. So these are a bright whitish color, and being projectors, that means they have a wide beam pattern and a nice sharp cutoff. Even as compared to the stock headlights, these are a noticeable improvement. Oracle really spent time making sure that the actual light portion gave you a lot of output without the glare that you might find on other aftermarket lights. You also, of course, get some LED turn signals to fill in the spaces and keep things nice and legal. These are also modular, so you can swap them out as other units become available if you want something different, or if something happens to one part of the setup while you're blasting down the trail, these can be easily swapped out without having to replace the entire element. And while that's all great, it's not necessarily the coolest part. Now these have not one, not two, but three sets of RGB lights in the headlight section, and you can customize them pretty much however you want. You get a large outer ring that's labeled as the outer halo, which will double as a plain white daytime running light. There's another set of LEDs called the inner halo on the inside where you get this sort of rocket booster inspired look, especially against the black housings. And perhaps the coolest and most unique part is what's called the Demon Eye. Now that is going to be in the main beam area right in the center, and it gives it that evil eye sort of appearance, just like the name implies. It's a super cool layered effect, especially when paired with the rest of the RGB stuff. There's a bunch of different colors that you can choose from too, so you can really customize the look. And it's all controlled either via the included remote or the Bluetooth app on your phone. And not only do you get a bunch of different colors to choose from, you've also got different effects that you can do too. You can dim them, you can play around and really customize these to make them work kind of exactly how you want. The outer housings are made using automotive grade ABS plastics, so they are lightweight and strong. Now the lenses are polycarbonate, the standard of the industry, so these are going to last and function just like factory headlights. They are again fully LED, so the lights are nice and bright and they have a good long lifespan. It's also important to keep LEDs cool in order for them to function properly. And the Oculus headlights have both active and passive cooling, including remote mounted heat sinks and an internal cooling fan to keep these all functioning properly. The lights also have integrated adjusters as well, meaning that they are DOT and SAE approved, so they are fully street legal. They also come with most of the wiring already done, just ready for you to plug in. We'll talk more about that in a moment. Pricing for the set comes in around $850, making them a decidedly premium option. Although they do still come in at a lower price than a lot of the other options out there, so for the money you're getting a great setup here. The headlight output is excellent, and you're getting something that looks good and is totally unique. Installation gets a 2 out of 3 on our difficulty meter, and the job should take you around 2 hours to complete. Now there is some wiring that you're going to need to do in order to get everything working as far as the RGB elements are concerned, so it is going to take you some time. But the main beams and turn signals are all plug and play, so if you're comfortable doing a little bit of wiring and just bolting some stuff in, this is definitely a job you can tackle at home. That said, let's head on out to the shop and we'll walk you through the entire process step by step.
Tools required for this install include a ratchet, a clip remover tool, a plastic pry tool, wire strippers and crimpers, needle nose pliers, scissors or diagonal cutters, an 8mm ratcheting wrench, an extension, 7, 8, and 10mm sockets, the included wrench, and some zip ties. What's up guys? Today we're installing a set of headlights on our Bronco. First we're going to watch a quick uninstall video showing you how to remove your factory headlights, and then we'll meet you back here for the install.
All right, first thing we're going to need to do to get our headlights off is remove this upper cover here on our radiator. To do that, we're going to need our trim removal tool to remove a series of push pins that hold it in place. So let's go ahead and get that done. All right, so we've got 9 of these push pins that have to be removed. So we're just going to slip the edge of our removal tool underneath the top portion, lift it up, and then we can pull the rest of it out. All right, once you got your push pins removed, it's probably a good idea to go ahead and remove this inlet here for your intake, just because it kind of hangs up on the cover. So to do that, we're just going to lift it up and back. Once that's done, we can go ahead and lift our cover out of place. Now we've got 4 bolts here in the front, right behind the front edge of the grill. We're going to take those out using our 10mm socket. Now, depending on your model of the Bronco, you may have a front camera and a washer for that camera. If you do, you'll need to pull this out gently so that you can disconnect the wire for the camera and also disconnect the hose for the washer. So we're just going to pull this out slightly. Now we'll disconnect our camera here simply by pushing in on the release lever and pulling it out. Now we can go ahead and disconnect our washer hose. To do that, we've got one clip here. Just grab it on both sides and pop it off. We've got another clip here that attaches it to the wiring harness. So you just need to reach under, push that clip in and disconnect it. Then using our trim removal tool, unpop the Christmas tree connector here, and then finally we can disconnect our hose from the washer at the bottom. Now you want to be a little careful when you're pulling this off. Make sure that you don't break anything because it is plastic. And now we can go ahead and get our grill out of the way. Now the next thing we have to do, because there is a bolt at the bottom of our fender trim here, so that needs to come off before we can get to that other bolt. In order to get this off, we have to take our fender flares off. It's a really easy process, no tools are required. There are 5 clips on the underside of our fender flare here. So we'll need to unclip those. It's a simple lever. I'll show you that when we get it off because it's hard to get the camera up in here. So we'll go ahead and take that off, and then we can take off our front piece. Now, once you've got the levers undone, simply pull it away from the fender. Now, here are the levers that we were talking about that have to be released in order to remove the fender flare. It's a simple lever, back and forth, all you have to do to be able to pull this out. Now, if you're replacing both headlights like we are, you'll need to remove the fender flare from the other side as well before we take off this trim piece. Now we can remove this trim piece across the front of the grill simply by grabbing the edge of it here and prying it away. There's no bolt holding this in, so it's just a matter of pulling and detaching it. Now we'll do the same thing on the other side and get that out of the way. Now this is the bolt that was behind that trim piece that we just removed. So we'll go ahead and take that out using our 8mm socket. Now we've got 2 10mm bolts at the top of our headlight, one here and one here. And we'll go ahead and take those out with our 10mm socket. Now right next to this top bolt here on the outside of the headlight, there is a push pin that needs to be removed. So we'll use our trim removal tool, get underneath that, and pop it out. Now we can go ahead and remove our headlight. So we'll grab the bottom of it here and the top and just pull it away. Now once you've got it pulled away from the vehicle, we can go ahead and disconnect our harness here simply by pushing in on the black release tab and pulling it out. And now you can repeat that process for the other light.
Now the first thing we need to do is assemble our headlights. We have a bunch of different pieces. We need to add some brackets as well as our turn signal light. So we're going to slide this over the 2 notches here to get started. We have a little cover, and then we have hardware included. as well as a wrench, and then you're going to need 7 and 8 millimeter sockets for this as well. So now we can take our turn signal. We're going to slide these slots over our 2 mounting provisions. And then we have our cover that's going to go over top. And then we'll get our long bolt, slide that through both of these holes. And then we have nuts for the other side. And then we're going to take an 8 millimeter socket and the smaller side of our included wrench and tighten these down. Next, we can flip our headlight over. I've got a microfiber towel under it just so that we don't scratch up the lens. We have our bottom mounting bracket that we're going to install. Right behind our wires here, you see a little locating tab and 2 holes. And then farther down, there's 2 more locating tabs that go in the bottom of the bracket here. So you want to make sure you have all of those slotted into place before you thread in your bolts. And then we'll take these short little self-tapping bolts, drop those into the holes. And then we'll take a 7 millimeter socket to tighten these down. And then we can rotate this around and get our upper mounting tab. Once again, it has that locating pin. So slide that on and then line up your 2 holes. Now, if you have big hands, it's going to be a little bit difficult. Try to get those dropped into the holes. Now I'm going to half tighten down the first one. Now I'm going to grab a pair of needle nose pliers here just to make it a little bit easier. Just get that dropped into the hole and lined up, and then get that 7 millimeter socket on it to tighten it down. And now the last thing we need to do is find our turn signal wire. It's going to be nice and labeled with this little note there. And then we'll connect it up to our turn signal. There's a little notch here that needs to line up with the notch on the other connector. And then you can just push it in nice and tight and grab this cover, screw it on, and that'll make it nice and watertight. And then do that same thing for your other headlight. So now we're going to start wiring up our light controller. Now we have a positive and a negative wire that we're going to need to hook up to our batteries. So I'm just going to lay that off to the side now, get those wires untangled, and then you can lift up on this tab to pop off the cover on the battery, and then take a 10 millimeter socket to remove one of these nuts. And then you can hook up your positive, thread that nut back on, and tighten it down with that same 10 millimeter socket. And then you can close that up, come over to the negative, and do that same thing. Thread the nut back on and tighten that back down. And then I'm just going to run these wires off to the side here to keep them nice and out of the way. So now we're ready to mount up our headlight. Now we're going to start on the driver's side here. For the passenger side, we're going to need to add some extension harnesses to our longer wires. It's going to install the same, so you're going to repeat this process on the other side, and then we'll add those extensions later. Now we have our shorter wire for the side marker. We're going to run this off to the side to hook up to our side marker later in the install. Our main connector, we're just going to plug in to our body connector where we unhooked our factory headlight. And then these 4 longer wires, we're going to run up and by the battery. So I'm going to get those 4 started first. So I'm going to take these 4 wires and run them up by the battery here. Just tuck those off to the side for now. And then I'll take that main connector, plug that in, and then take your side marker wire, run that off to the side, and then slide your headlight into place. Tuck your turn signal wire, and then I'm just going to throw that push clip in the top here just to hold that in place for now. Next we can install our 2 bolts at the top of the headlight. We've got this silver one going right above the turn signal, and the black one going back with the push clip. And then we'll just center that up, take a 10mm socket to tighten both of these down. Next, we can reinstall that 8mm bolt at the bottom here. Slide that in and get it threaded into place as much as we can. And then I'm going to grab an 8mm ratcheting wrench to tighten it the rest of the way down. And then you can repeat the whole installation process for the headlight on the other side. Now next we're going to set up the wiring for our daytime running light harness. We have a fuse tap that we're going to have to add to this red wire, and then we have a black wire that we're going to connect to our battery terminal. So I'm going to take a pair of wire strippers and crimpers, strip some lead off, twist it up, slide it into the fuse tap, and crimp that down. So now I'll take those wire strippers and just strip back some lead on the end of our wire and twist that up. And then slide that into the fuse tap. And then we'll take wire crimpers and crimp down on that. And then just give it a little tug to check your crimp, and then we can get this installed on the Bronco. So now we can come over to our fuse box. On the back side, we have 2 tabs. On the front side, we have 1. So we'll press in on these tabs to pop off our cover. And now we're going to be looking for this 10 amp fuse right here. So you can grab a pair of needle nose pliers to pull that out. And then we'll grab our fuse tap and put that fuse in the open slot. And then slide that right back in where it came from. And then we can pop our cover back on. Next we can come back to that negative battery terminal and pop that nut off again. And we're going to slide our negative for our fuse tap harness onto that post and tighten our nut back down. So now we can start plugging in all of the connections over here. First, we're going to find the wire that's labeled DRL driving mode. That's what we're going to hook up to the harness that we just installed with our fuse tap. So we'll make that connection and then thread on that little nut. Tuck that away. And then we can grab our control box with all of the wires coming off of this. Now there is a wiring diagram included in the kit that tells you exactly what each of these wires is for. I'm going to start with the outside here. That's what's going to be going to the driver's side. So the outside is going to be for the demon eye. So we're just going to look for that wire. And here we have demon eye. So we'll hook that up and then twist on that nut. And then second is going to be our inner halo, which is going to be this wire. So we'll just line that up, connect that, and then twist on that nut. And then the third is going to be for our outer halo, which is just going to be that last plug remaining. And then twist on that nut. Now the other wires are going to be for the other side. They're just going to be the opposite of how these were. So this one's going to be the outer, the inner, and then the demon eye. So now we can get our extension harnesses hooked up on the other side and get everything hooked up. So now we just need to do that exact same thing for the passenger side. So I'm going to come over here just to give us a little more access. I'm going to wiggle this intake tube off, and then we're just going to go in the reverse order. So our outer halo is going to be this first one. So we'll grab our extension harness. We'll match up the female connector with the male. Slide that in and twist that nut on. And then we'll bring that over to the other side and find the outer halo. And we'll just line everything up, press that in, twist on the nut. And then the next one is going to be the inner halo. Which is going to be this one right here. And then lastly, this one on the outside is for the Demon Eye. And then we can grab our DRL harness, connect that up. And now we can just worry about getting all of our wiring cleaned up, and then we'll put everything back together. So now we need to clean up this mess of wiring. So I'm just gonna try to get as little slack in the middle as I can before I start zip tying everything. I'm gonna use this harness and just follow this routing over just to keep it nice and clean. So I'm gonna take our control box and we're just gonna tuck this back behind our battery. The big thing is you just wanna stay away from the fans as well as everything else that's moving, anything hot. So now we can start taking our zip ties to tie up all of this excess. And once again, I'm just gonna follow this factory harness. Then you can take a pair of scissors or diagonal cutters, cut off the excess on the zip tie, and then just work your way across. And then on the other side here, we've run out of factory harness. So I'm gonna use this hole right here. And over on the other side, I'm just gonna zip tie all of these wires together. And then we can reinstall this intake duct. Now next we can come back to the table and grab our grill, and we have to install our side marker lights. We have 2 tabs. We're gonna run a bolt through into some pre-existing holes in our grill. We're gonna do it for each side. We have RH and LH stamped on these so you know which side is which. RH is gonna be right hand for the passenger, LH left hand for the driver. So now we can just slide this into place. We have our 2 mounting holes right here. And we'll just drop our bolts in and start our threads. And then we'll just get this all lined up and take a 7mm socket to tighten these down. And then do that same thing on the other side. So now we're ready to reinstall our grill. The only thing we need to do is plug in our side marker here that we just installed. That's the wire that we ran down to the side of the headlight. It's gonna be a little bit hard to see on camera, but we're just gonna do the same thing we did for all the ones up top, line up the notches, and then twist that nut on. So now I'm gonna reach in there with one hand and grab onto the wire, and then we're just gonna line up those notches. Slide that in, and then twist on our nut. And then I'm just gonna run the wire cleanly back, get it out of the way of the headlight. And now we can just line up all of those tabs on our grill and press this into place. So now we can go back up top and just finish everything up. We're gonna start with our 2 connectors over here. And then we can reinstall those 4 bolts. And take a 10mm socket to tighten them all down. And then we can grab our rad cover. We're gonna slip this under the intake tube here. And then we can grab all of our push clips and reinstall them. So now we have a lot of different color combinations and modes that we can control from the included remote. We have all of these buttons with different colors that are obviously going to change the color of our halos. And then we also have a flash, strobe, fade, and smooth mode. And then we have settings icons in the top here. This is going to speed up or slow down the different mode or change your brightness. Now you also have an on-off switch, which do exactly what they say. Turn them on and off. So that'll wrap up this review and install of the Oracle Oculus Color Shift by LED projector headlights with black housing and clear lens for your 2021 and newer Bronco. Thank you for watching, and for all things Bronco, keep it right here at extremeterrain.com.